and welcome to the CTO Perspectives, where we discuss unique perspectives about the most current issues in IT operations. Today we'll be talking about domain-agnostic AIOps with Elik Eizenberg, Chief Technology Officer and co-founder at BigPanda. Hey, Elik.
Hi, Aaron. Great to be here, as always.
Always great seeing and talking to you. So let's talk about domain-agnostic AIOps. Gartner, in its recent market guide for AIOps, stated that there is no future for IT operations without AIOps, and then went on to discuss two general types of AIOps, domain-centric AIOps and domain-agnostic AIOps. You had the chance to participate in a webinar with one of the lead analysts who wrote this report, this guide. Can you elaborate a little bit about what is domain-agnostic AIOps and what is domain-centric AIOps?
Yeah, great question. Let me start by saying that I think the most recent market guide from Gartner is the most mature articulation of what AIOps should be and is today. And Gartner has kind of, as you said, they said there's essentially two different high-level categories of AIOps, domain-centric and domain-agnostic. Domain-centric is about about monitoring tools, observability tools, implementing some AI capabilities around their first-party data. So essentially taking whatever data they already have and introducing some AI capabilities on top of that to solve specific use cases. Domain-agnostic AIOps is essentially where you combine data points or data from various data sets, various tools. So you connect to multiple monitoring tools, multiple change tools, topology tools, and you find ways to turn that data across those different systems into insight or action automatically.
Okay, so maybe a small example of each?
Yeah, of course. So on the domain-centric use case, think about, let's say you have an APM, an application performance monitoring tool that tracks your latency for a specific application. A domain-centric approach for AIOps would be, let's identify anomalies, let's identify when that latency is higher than usual for that time of day, and create an alert or a warning automatically based on that trend analysis for the APM metric. For domain-agnostic, a use case would be, let's say you have alerts coming in from your log management system, your APM tool, your network management system, and your real user monitoring tool. A domain-agnostic system will take those different signals, normalize them into a consistent data model, and then correlate them together into a logical incident across all of these different tools and data sources.
Okay, so maybe to get a better feel and understanding when to use each one and what the difference is. I heard this actually from you, this really smart analogy. You somewhat compared it to diagnosis in the medical world.
Yeah, 100%. I love that analogy because it's simple and it really clarifies the strengths and weaknesses of each approach. So, when you think about diagnosis, we're already seeing a lot of AI technology being embraced by the different healthcare vendors. And let's say you have a thermometer, right? And that thermometer checks if you have a fever, measures your temperature. That thermometer can provide AI technology in the form of identifying anomalies in your temperature. Maybe your temperature is too high for your age, your sex, or this time of day. You might have another tool, right? Another tool would be, let's say, a device measuring your blood pressure. So that device might also have some AI technology around the trends in your blood pressure, whether they're positive or negative trends, might be able to identify those. So obviously these are very good AI capabilities, but they are limited to first-party data sets, meaning they can only work for the thermometer use case, only on top of the temperature data, and for the blood pressure use case, only on top of the blood pressure data, right? So it's valuable, but it's limited to only one type of data set. Now, a domain-agnostic approach would actually combine different data points together from different tools to provide insight, right? And we all know that in the world of diagnosis, what is really important is putting together different data points to give you the big picture rather than looking at a specific silo. So in the healthcare industry, I think it's very clear that domain agnostic would probably be the superior approach for AI.
So what you're saying is, if we take this, so a doctor needs all this data from different data types and different data sets to understand what's going on with your body. Similarly, if we're talking about AIOps, what you're saying is that domain-centric AIOps doesn't allow you or doesn't provide you with the big picture. You're missing the big picture. That would be the biggest challenge.
Yeah, exactly. So domain agnostic, I would say this. Domain agnostic is about different data sets across your stack, across your infrastructure, right? So it will help you consume data from both your legacy environment and modern environment, cloud environment and on-prem environment, and also across your stack. So, network data, storage data, virtualization data, but also high-level application data and user data. It can handle all the different types of data sets, normalize that, and process that to generate insight.
And could you achieve by just having domain-centric AIOps in each one of your tools?
Not really. Like what you can do, you can go on this long journey of starting to introduce AIOps into each one of your tools, right? So if you have 15 or 20 tools, as most companies do, you'll have to go on a big journey of configuring, optimizing AIOps for each one of those tools. And even then, you will still have what is a siloed picture, right? Each tool will know what's happening with its own first-party data, but there will not be any tool that will show you the big picture, how the different data points correlate or make sense together.
Okay, so and I assume that's what domain-agnostic AIOps solves, providing you that big picture, just with let's say with just one AIOps tool.
100%. What essentially kind of domain-agnostic AIOps tools do, they connect into your different data sources, and they collect data directly from your APMs, log management tools, time series tools, user monitoring tools, APM tools, as well as your change data sources, CI/CD tools, change management tools, topology data sources like virtualization and cloud topology and service discovery. Takes all these data sets, normalizes them, enriches them, and then leverages them to correlate data points together to provide good insight.
Okay, but I'm sure, let's say, domain-centric tool vendors would argue that they know their data set better than any domain-agnostic tool could ever understand.
Yeah, that's a very, very valid point, actually. Like nobody knows better their data than the vendor generating the data. So if I'm a log management tool, I understand my log data best, right? Nobody can compete with that. In fact, I have access to more layers of that data than anyone else because I don't necessarily expose the full data set via API. So if you are looking for kind of a deeper solution around a very particular use case, you might want to use a domain-centric solution, right? So if to take that latency example I provided earlier, if your main problem is around detecting outliers in your latency data sets, for sure a domain-centric AIOps solution on top of your APM would be best. If your main problem is how do you turn all the existing visibility you already have from all these different sources, from all these heterogeneous data sets, how do you turn that into insight, then domain-centric will not be enough.
Okay, and then you need domain agnostic to take that in and tie it into other data points.
100%.
So even if they know their own data better, the ability to connect the dots, so to speak, and create a big picture is a big advantage that they cannot provide.
Yeah, exactly. I think every IT leader or any architect or somebody evaluating what tools, what vendors to use right now, they really need to ask the question, what is my most burning pain, right? If the main burning pain right now is related to a very particular use case for a particular data set, nobody would be better at that than a domain-centric solution. But if your problem is, again, how do you take heterogeneous high-volume data, turn that into insight, domain-centric solutions will just not get you there.
Okay, so if I'm looking into domain agnostic, let's say introducing a domain agnostic solution to my organization, wouldn't that be a big step? Like if we're saying that domain centric is just one part of your IT stack, wouldn't it be smarter to just start with one rather than go to this domain agnostic approach, which seems like a big step?
No, I would argue the opposite, actually, for two reasons, I believe. One is because in the end, what you're trying to do is move the needle for your business, right? Improve your operational metrics, improve your costs, improve your MTTR. So to move the needle for your business using a domain-centric approach, you'll now have to go one by one, every single tool you have, and start deploying, optimizing, configuring AIOps solution for that particular tool. And that can be a very long journey. Like if it takes you a few good months to get acquainted with a good AIOps solution for just APMs or just log management, it'll easily take you years to get through the entire journey of configuring domain-centric AIOps. So that is one reason for why I think actually domain-agnostic solutions have better time to value. The other reason is that you have to take into account what is the strength of of AI, right? Machine learning technology has a sweet spot, and that sweet spot is essentially taking a lot of heterogeneous data, high volume heterogeneous data, and making sense of it without a lot of human involvement, right? You don't have to rely on humans to start generating that insight. So in a domain agnostic use case, you actually have more data, you have more diverse data, and this is exactly where AIOps or exactly where machine learning shines and provides good time to value without depending on your people too much.
So you're saying that it's the opposite, actually. The fact that you are going agnostic and ingesting all these tools actually makes your ML better, quicker. It provides you value much quicker than if you would have gone domain-centric. So it would be essentially easier.
From my conversations with people in the industry, from our BigPanda customers, in the end, when you're measured by, were you able to improve operational KPIs, the domain agnostic approach is in fact they provides the better time to value and of course the higher return on investment, right? Because you deployed once, you get value across your entire stack rather than domain-centric approach where you get a lot of value, but again, it's limited to a very particular tool and data set in part of your stack.
Got it. So a lot of that has to do with, the ML and AI angle is great. I think that opens up a complete different conversations, which we'll save for another time. I really want to thank you for this conversation. It's been illuminating.
Yeah, thank you so much, Yaron.
And if you want to hear more CTO perspectives or learn more about AIOps or IT operations, please visit bigpanda.io. See you next time.